Hi, hello, welcome to the Fierce Social Podcast. I am so glad you are joining in for today's episode about business seasons. What is a business season? A lot of times we may have a business that operates at different capacities at different seasons in the year. So I'm literally meaning seasons of the year, or in our business sense, it could be quarterly, it could be broken up into thirds, it could be monthly, but this is something only you can determine for yourself. So during this episode, I'm going to go over 3 different phases that your business may ebb and flow through. So while it is possible to grow and sell at the same time, I think you will probably agree with me when I say when you're hyper focused on one or the other, you end up doing so much better, right? Because you're not trying to juggle both at the same time. They always say when you're trying to dig 2 holes, they don't always say this is the example that I have, but when you're trying to dig 2 holes and you can't give 100% to both of them, you can only give 50% here, 50% there, which means that you're only going to get 50% of the way each day, which is still a good amount. But imagine if you could give 100% to that one hole and 100% to the other, and you'd be much more successful a heck of a lot faster, right? So when we say it is possible to sell and grow at the same time, my advice as a coach and as a mentor, but also as a strategist, it's just so much more efficient with your time. And if you have listened to my podcast episodes or if you've been around with me on social media, I am such a proponent of work smarter, not harder, right? We are already doing so many things in our businesses. We wear so many hats, and not just in our businesses, in our lives, right? Some of us are married with kids, with fur children, with full-time jobs, with volunteer stuff that we're invested in, or just getting out and being social with our friends, right? We're all trying to do so many things, and our business is one part of that. But within that business, then we're the marketing, we're the HR, we're the content creation, we're the management, we're the yada, yada, yada. I mean, we are so many things in our business. So let's again go back to that work smarter, not harder mentality. And how can we make the most and be really conscientious of our business season? So the first season that I want to talk about is growth phase. And this is probably everybody's favorite phase, and they want to be in it all the time. And honestly, you can do a little bit of growth and sales in here. And I don't want to confuse you because I'll get into what growth phase means, but growth phase is really for the business owner that is at the beginning of their business, or somebody who's kind of revamping or needing to grow more of that following. So when I mean growth phase, I'm specifically talking about the amount of people you're getting in front of. Either it's on social media or it's on email or you're networking in person. So when I mean growth phase, I'm not actually talking about your revenue growth, although I wish I was. We'll get to that phase here in a second. But your growth phase specifically talks about the amount of people that you are getting in front of, or the traffic, right? That you are getting exposure, your overall reach. So that could be your social media engagement, your reach, your followers. It could be your email list. It can also be the people that are walking through your brick and mortar or that you're connecting with on a regular basis. I love networking, especially in person, because it's like one of those forgotten ways to grow your business. And honestly, if you get in the business of business, you're going to have to talk to people to make sales and generate more traffic. Am I right? I know I'm right. I know I'm right. It's fine. Okay. So the next phase of business, well, you know what, before we move on to the next phase of business, I want to reiterate that this phase is really important to have before you move into this next phase that I'm going to talk about, which is the sales phase. This is really important that you have this down. You are most likely going to go back and forth between the growth and the sales phase. And then the third phase of maintenance is going to be one that's completely up to you. And again, I'll get into both of those here in a sec, but it is really important that before you move into a sales phase, and I've seen this happen a lot with clients of mine or just people that I know that launch too quickly. What I want to just reiterate from the get-go is you ideally want to be in a growth phase before you go into sales phase. So it is really important, and I want to reiterate this, that you are in a growth phase for a month to 3 months before moving into some kind of sales phase. So when you get to a point in your business where you are launching a program, a new offer, or anything like that. So for instance, I have the Fierce Social Society membership, which honestly, I am launching that all the time. Launching in a sense that I am pushing for enrollment, right? If I'm hyper focused on certain times of the year when I'm not opening that enrollment, but when I am focused on enrollment specifically, I'm going to strategically do that when I get the bulk of enrollments coming in at the same time, which means I might have a workshop before it, or I might do something special to draw attention to it. And that is about once every quarter for me. So it's not, yes, I'm bringing in new members every single month, but not at the capacity or not at the level of when I'm launching and being really purposeful about enrollment, if that makes sense. So before that, I have about a month and a half of growth phase where I am driving certain content that it's super value driven, that it is serving my audience. It's basically just free value to the max, so that when I come in with I would love for you to join this workshop, or, tune in for a special offer for whatever it is, it has a higher success rate and higher conversion rate. So that's how my business operates, is I have certain times of the year where my sales are higher. So I'm not just constantly in sales mode. I am in growth, maintenance, and then sales mode. So my point though is, before you go into a certain time of sales, because selling all the time, yes, we're selling all the time, but when you're hyper focused on it, you just want to be strategic with it, if that makes sense. So growth phase, and then let's talk about the second phase, is the sales phase. It's the time in your business you're putting all of your effort toward a big launch, just like I was talking about, a new product release and maximum sales. As much as we'd like to be in a sales phase all the time, you'll find that switching between the phases allows you for that maximum payout, which ideally we want. So this is entirely up to you. Maybe you have a growth phase like every other month, and then you go into a sales phase. At some point though, you are going to want to go into what I call the maintenance phase. So before we go into that maintenance phase, let's talk about what the sales phase is. And that is when you're highly promoting whatever launch you have, whatever new offer you have, right? And remember, we have just come from the growth phase, moved into the sales phase, which I wouldn't imagine it would be a month long like your growth phase is. It would maybe be a week to maybe even 3. So yes, close to a month, but exceeding that amount is probably not necessary. But again, if you do your growth phase really strategically, you could have a really high maximum payout in a week if you do it right. So that sales phase is actually a little bit shorter, and it's those gusts, right? And so maybe for you, if you're a product-based business, maybe it's around your launches, or maybe it's around new releases that you have. Having a new release every single week be beneficial, but oftentimes we find like, oh my gosh, they're coming out with new stuff all the dang time. It's so hard to keep up. Now, I will say that when you grow an incredibly loyal, dedicated following, they want new releases every single week because they are so obsessed with you and your business and your product, your offer, that they're like, yeah, I want something new every single week. And this really pertains to product-based businesses. I'm not saying that my service providers bring something out every single week. That would be exhausting, right? And then it would make me wonder, like, dang, you're coming out with a new offer every single week. Like, how good are your other offers? Because for me personally, it takes me a good chunk of time to really pour in to an offer, whether it's, the FSS membership, or it's this new 12-week coaching program that I have coming out that I'm super excited. And I will be sure to tell you about that before this podcast episode ends. But this is definitely more for that product-based business. If you have new launches or new releases out every single week, growing a really loyal, dedicated, obsessed super fan following, that's going to be for you, versus when you're just getting started, doing something really, really well and coming out with something maybe once a month or bi-weekly is probably the better option for you. Okay, let's move into our third and final phase, which is the maintenance phase. Now, this is not necessarily a phase that everybody is going to be in often, I would say. There are a few clients of mine that we've talked about their social media strategy, and I said, what are you really needing? Are you needing more traffic? Are you needing more eyeballs on your stuff? And they said, actually, we are like at capacity. We are full with clients. We are overwhelmed with product development or fulfillment, I should say. And they're like, we don't necessarily want more traffic, but we want to upkeep the appearance of our social media, which, there you go, is the maintenance phase. So really the maintenance phase is a time more so focused on having a consistent presence and connecting with the people that you already have. So you're not so focused on growing and getting higher reach or getting in front of brand new eyeballs. It's it's more so for the people that you already have. So loving on them really well and having customer retention, but then also focusing on reviews and testimonials and feedback so you can make your business better while you're in that time of taking care of the clients, customers you currently have, right? You may also use this phase to nurture and strengthen those relationships, kind of like what I said. It just sets you up for a more effective sales phase or that growth phase when you want to move back into those other phases. You've already nurtured the people that you already have, right? So it makes moving into either one of those a heck of a lot easier. So now I'm sure you're wondering, Mandy, how do I figure out which phase is where? So this is actually something that we dive deeper into inside the Fierce Social Society membership on how can I determine this for my own business? And really the answer is fairly simple. It takes looking back on your data, right? So for the last year, after being in business for 2 full years, I have better data of when my sales phases are, when my growth phases need to be, if I ever want to move into maintenance phase. So I will give you 2 really great examples that I have for you that are my own accounts that are in completely different phases, which is really funny. My personal account, the Mandy Emerson, because I'm pivoting the type of content that's on that account, you may have found me over on the Mandy Emerson where I spoke exactly about the topic that we're covering today, more so about social media strategy, marketing tactics, talking a little bit about business growth, right? A lot of that was housed on the Mandy Emerson. And then ever since I opened the Fierce Social Society, I have now transferred all of that very heavily educational type content over to the FSS account. And the Mandy Emerson now gets to become more about the person, the entrepreneur, the behind the scenes, talking about multiple revenue streams, talking about being a full-time work from home fur mom, future human mom, because I'm due in June of this year, right? So talking more so about the reality and really just what it looks like to be a full-time work from home business owner, but that also takes care of the house. I help provide for my husband. I do chores, I do laundry, right? Like we don't outsource all of that stuff. Hopefully someday we will. I would really love a housekeeper. Housekeeper in the sense like someone who can just come clean my bathrooms and my kitchen. Like that's really all I want. I can't stand doing my bathrooms and my kitchen. Other things like I don't mind sweeping and mopping. I know that sounds really silly, but if I could skip cleaning the kitchen and bathroom, I totally would. So if I can just hire somebody in the future for that, I'm so keen. But right, like I'm wearing the hat of housekeeper. I'm wearing the laundry lady. I wear the hat of business owner and also taking care of our pet Moses and also being a mom at some point. So right, I'm wearing all these different hats and I'm just peeling back the curtain of what that realistically looks like. So I get to be a little bit more free with my content, but I'm not in a time of heavy growth, nor am I doing sales. I'm definitely not selling like I would on the FSS account. Yes, I'm selling in the sense of partnerships or affiliates or just sharing the things that I love, but really I'm nurturing the people that I already have. So I'm very much in a maintenance phase over on the Mandy Emerson account. On the FSS account, I've just been in heavy growth phase and moving into a sales phase because I am proudly launching, which this is a really great segue into this. I am super excited for this offer. I don't think I've ever been more excited about a program because it's really allowing me to step into my zone of genius, which is content creation strategy for your specific business. So really quickly what this is, the 12-week program called Content That Converts. The biggest struggle that I hear from business owners is that they don't know what type of content they should be creating for their specific business because content creation strategy is not a one size fits all. It's not cookie cutter, nor can it be in order for it to be effective. So I work with business owners primarily one-on-one, but now that I'm kind of stepping away from that, this allows me to do this in more of a group setting, but it's still very high touch in the sense that we have a little mini training throughout the 12 weeks, but then we also have weekly group coaching sessions. And we also have a Slack community channel where you can get feedback as you're creating things or insights on what is best for your account and what's not. So it's basically the same as getting one-on-one. However, it's going to be in a group setting. And then you're going to be connected with other business entrepreneurs, which it's always great to connect with other businesses, especially if it opens the door for for collaboration. So again, this specific program starts the week of February 6th, goes for 12 weeks. Again, there's those weekly sessions that we have. We'll have mini trainings all throughout. You're actually going to have access to the Fierce Reels course as well that gets updated all the time. You'll get weekly reel trend reports that I send out every single Monday. And again, that Slack community channel, which I feel like always gets very undervalued. When everybody said there is a community, a part of this program, I'm like, I'm in, because people undervalue the community part. When you get to mastermind and brainstorm with other business owners that are in the same place as you, that's one of the most difficult things as a business owner, is finding other business owners that are speaking your language and that are trying to do the things that you're trying to do, or go the places that you want to go, or make the kind of money that you want to make. So I'm really excited to provide that space. So the wait list, if you get on the wait list, which the link will be in the show notes below, and I'll also put it here on Facebook for my Facebook people on the wait list will get access a day before it gets released to the general public, because there's only going to be 15 spots available, which then allows me to be way more intentional and, again, high touch with the people that are a part of this program. So I am going kind of back to our conversation of being in a growth phase, sales phase. I have really been focused on growth phase on the FSS account, really trying to provide value driven content, free content, or free value content, in the sense of I'm giving stuff away, right? In the way that I'm educating, helping, building trust with my audience, so that when I go into this sales phase of starting to launch this program, make it known, talk about it a little bit more, encourage you to get on the wait list. And if the wait list is open, to grab one of those 15 spots. I don't know how fast they're going to go. I have a feeling they're going to go pretty quick, right? And then I'm going into that sales phase. So there's two different examples for you. One is in maintenance mode and one is in now going into sales phase. And having these phases and being really clear on it, it actually allows you to look at your year as a whole and see, okay, I'm going to sell here, here, and here, because last year, those were my highest selling months, or those are my highest selling times. So then right before that, a month and a half, or maybe even 2 months, or maybe even every time in between, maybe you never touch the maintenance phase, right? Maybe you never even go there, but you go from sales phase to growth phase, sales phase to growth phase. Now, if you're the type of business that stays pretty even keel the entire time, I would encourage you to test out this type of strategy where you are giving a little bit more in the growth sense. Like, how can you build up your email list? How can you be networking and meeting new people, whether it's in person or maybe it's online? How can you challenge yourself to do those things so that you're building up your network? You could do it through a referral program. You can do it through an affiliate program, so that some of your super fans are getting a kickback whenever they refer somebody to you, right? I think it's so possible when you're a product-based business, or you're kind of even keeled, that you can ramp up, right, the growth phase as well as the sales phase. It is totally possible. And like I said, it is possible to do growth and sales at the same time. Just know that your efforts are better when you're just hyper focused on the growth side. Okay, that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. So until then, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.